All right. Oops, wrong one. Oh, I like it. Can you hear now?
Yeah.
All right. Welcome to Radical Books and Activists. I changed the name recently, and I don't know. Everybody has a cool intro on YouTube. What if I say hello, activists? You think that's maybe too narrow? All right. Hey, everybody. It's Radical Books and Activists. We'll figure that out. So it's more universal. We have the supreme pleasure of having both Misael Juarez and Daniel Brooks today. And I haven't done an interview in a while, but I thought, shoot, what better time to talk about poetry since Misael is putting out a book in a few weeks through Body Blues Press, which I own, called My Spoken Word Wife Playing for Keeps. And he's going to be reading from that. And Daniel is going to be reading from his collection and varied works. So we're going to talk about everything from politics to poetry and just shoot the shit and have fun. So, dude, I'm so jelly of your pipe, bro.
Yeah, it was more economical for me than buy. It was. It just was. It's an economical thing, but I like it. You know what? People say that's a really nice pipe you have. But when I used to smoke cigarettes, no one ever told me, "Hey, that's a cool cigarette." You know, like so.
Yeah, yeah. Cigarettes, I think, have a dirty rap, which,
Yeah, yeah.
and pipes are more classy, so they probably get confused, but. Anyway, so why don't you all introduce yourselves a little bit? Misa, do you want to go first?
Sure. My name is Misael Juarez. I am a father. I am a poet. I also have been diagnosed with schizophrenia, and the poetry that I write has to do with creating a situation for myself where I can collaborate with these voices, so because they don't leave me alone. So when I write poetry, when I write, is the most peaceful times that I encounter. So that's who I am, and that's my makeup. I don't know if there's a remedy for that, but the only remedy that I have discovered is poetry. So
Right. Awesome.
I
Awesome.
feel good about it.
That's great. Daniel, how about you?
Yeah. My name is Daniel Brooks. I'm also a poet as well, a writer and editor. Um, and a lot of my what I do in terms of like creativity is just centered around um, building a new world and kind of fighting the powers that be, so to speak, and really just giving the masses a voice, because I'm a part of the masses. I'm a part of
Mhm.
I'm a worker, I'm a teacher, I'm a black man. So everything that I do when it comes to writing is connected with that. So absolutely,
Yeah.
so I'm glad to be here.
Awesome, awesome. I had the pleasure of well, he Tango Estienne Martin, who's I believe the A San Francisco Poet Laureate, Black man, a comrade. He was talking to me students, and he said something that I've been sitting with since then. In fact, I'm gonna write a story about it. But we know with the conditions are going, they're rapidly just spinning, right? We see, this, they call it a conflict, but it's really a war. The sanctions in Russia, for us here, the mismanagement of COVID, all kinds of things that are going wrong, but they're accelerating. And so, what he said was, something to the effect of people need to see themselves as historical protagonists if they want an amazing epoch to come. And because if we don't, we may be the last ones at the party. And for some reason, that line hit me, and it hit me on a number of levels. One, because capitalism is speeding up in terms of even its own demise, right? And I see the environment, being a huge concern. So all these things. And so I've been thinking a lot about what that means. Like, what does it mean to be a historical protagonist that's empowered, to be and somebody who creates the social change and the world I want for everybody, right? With abundance, with a clean earth and all that.
Mhm.
And then the other thing was the importance of poetry. And I think something that you and Daniel have in common is that you don't proselytize to your poetry, but a lot of times you speak to race, class, and gender issues, that I think have a profound impact in educating people about the shit that happens in society, right? The problems that we need to solve, maybe even offer a glimpse of hope and solution. So I don't know if one of you wants to read a poem. Maybe we could start with Misa and then move on to Daniel.
Sure.
And then we can talk about that idea of what does it mean to be a historical protagonist. I think that's a deep question. How do we get there via poetry? Because I think that's also a really key thing. I know that's kind of intellectual, but I think we can grapple with that question, right?
Yeah. So you want me to read first? I'll
Sure.
go ahead. All right. War makes everyone cringe at the sight of terror. A revolutionary responds with flavor. Words written on paper give it value and worth. Use a mic and make the crowd roar with metaphors. She's analyzing the times for contradictions. Social media lets you in. Everyone can't win. Your profile gives you a platform to learn a thing. Learn to shift conversations by imagining. She
Mm-mm.
she questions institutions and politicians. For every bomb drop, she rhymes lines as her mission. They incarcerate immigrants with tax money. Freedom is a luxury. Everyone ain't free. She be playing cards without sabotage. Focus on bright dreams instead of the entourage. Shuffling the card deck without looking at the cards. A set of cards for every player from the boulevard. The system can be out hustled by good folk. Every player plugged in the system can be woke. The sleeping giant toss and turn till awaken, noticing the dawn when it's done pissing the can. She be counting the queens and kings for trouble, understanding many get lost in the shuffle. Her keen eye defeats them with a sleeve, or marked by a scratch when they're in need by her keen eye detects them under a sleeve, or marked by a scratch when they're in need by greed. Nobody teaches you the right way to be great. You make choices and bet your own winnings at stake. The physical gets old and wears down every day. Only your light and spirit can provide better ways. She's like a sweet pearl from the ocean down under. It wasn't until I went so deep that I found her. Counting the political cards on the table. When they wage war, it's always to fake freedom moves.
Damn, that's good. I don't think I've heard you perform that piece before. Yeah,
Thank you.
you're getting snaps from Daniel.
Thank you,
Yeah, I mean
Daniel. Thank you.
that right there. This whole idea if everybody has the potential to be woke. I love that line. Go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, what Tongo said, it makes so much sense because we don't ever really we look at history as like such a distant thing, something that's like way, way in the past that we're like disconnected from, and we don't realize that we're connected to the past and that we're connected to history, and that we're a part of a historical period and an epoch right now, and
Right
that
now.
we're very much a part of history. We are history just as human beings. So this one here is kind of it's sort of about that in terms of human beings, us not always realizing that we're a part of a nation, that we're a part of a people, that we're a part of an empire, and so on and so forth. So this one's called The Empire's Playbook. Their subjects perpetuate the violence that characterizes the founding and continuity of their country. When they want something, they take it with the force of God, with guns, 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 and more guns, with bombs, 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 and more bombs, with drones, 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 and more drones. They blur all lines, regurgitating buzzwords at the speed of sound.
Mm-mm.
Innovation equals exploitation. Nonprofit equals for profit. Inclusion equals neocolonialism. Public-private partnership equals fascism. Democracy equals dictatorship. Opportunity equals imperialism. Equality equals white supremacy. Information equals misinformation. Oh, how they fight for the right to use words out of context. Oh, how a lie becomes reality if it's repeated enough.
Oof, love it. Yeah, that's beautiful. And a lot too. I mean, especially in the current context. I was many of you know I'm how can I say this? I consider myself more of an activist now than ever because I've been fighting for COVID safety, and one of the things that we've been pushing is bring the vaccine to the people ordinance, which would provide jobs for people in the communities. The vaccine would go straight to the communities, especially Black and Brown communities, where there's a high rate of unvaccination. Full vaccination with the booster, especially for elderly people, and so in that regard, I consider myself an activist, but when you're an activist and you put your message out there, you attract trolls and ignorant people and people who are accepting these lies. And so one of the persons who was responding was like, oh, well, I guess she doesn't know that the million people that have died from COVID she didn't calculate that those statistics they're misusing from gunshot wounds. And I'm like, what? Why do people believe? Of course not. These are all COVID deaths, that they will believe anything. Um, and even though like they don't believe science, they don't believe statistics, they don't want to see facts. And I think that's a problem. Which I still can't wrap my head around that. Like, how is it that people ignore experts? But then, part of the thing is you have our government officials lying to their faces. Like Biden's pretty much said, oh, well, you have to live with it. No, first of all, we didn't even beat the pandemic, right? And so there's a lot there. I mean, but that a lot beautiful. I don't know if you two want to respond to each other's poems. I haven't done that before. Do you want to respond to Misael's poem and you respond to Daniel's poem?
Yes, I like how he added mathematics to language. I like how he was saying things like information equals misinformation, because there's something going on in the world where we spread a message and it just gets lost in the shuffle. It gets lost in the paradigm, and it gets regurgitated, and you hear it and you're like, what did I say that? And next thing you know, you're in trouble. You're in trouble for saying something that somebody misinterpreted. And when you start talking about the internet and all the things that go in there, maybe a lot of people have good thoughts and good deeds to do, but whatever the internet does to information, it definitely is not helping society evolve. It's helping us, or it's not helping us at all. I mean, but it's making us fight each other, and that's I could go on about that, but I enjoy your poem. I enjoy how the repetition in your poetry. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, Misael. And I think I've read that poem, going over your manuscript and editing some of the poems, and I always appreciated and admired the rhythm of your poetry and your unique style and kind of your own craft, and the hip hop and influences with the graffiti and kind of just hip hop Chicano culture that's infused into your work. So
Mm-hmm.
That's
I
wonderful.
love reading it, and I really do enjoy it, and it kind of takes me into a culture that I'm not a part of, as I hope that people are welcomed into mine, when they read my work. So
Right.
I love
Right.
it, man.
I think when I heard your work, I was thinking about, like, you're upfront about what you're thinking and feeling. You're being direct, and I kind of feel like I wish I could be more direct with my poetry. Sometimes in my poetry, but I have to say it in such a way, because remember, I'm collaborating with these auditory hallucinations. So um I'm I want to say it a different way sometimes, but sometimes I get in a fight, and what that looks like. If you ever been to Skid Row, what it looks like when you see a person fighting with something invisible, and that's, I don't really get like that, but it's an internal thing, you know what I'm saying? And I
Mm-hmm.
appreciate, and I could hear in your poetry that it's all you, and this I wish I could say it's all me. It came through me, but it's all these other things around me are saying these things, and I always admire when a poet is reading their work, and I go like, that's them. That's because they study that. That's because that's who they are. That's because that's why they say that. Like, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely. I mean, it's kind of inside out, really, for me, because I feel like with my poetry, I'm a lot um, that it's easier for me to express my political views, my social views, um, in my poetry than it is for me to just have a conversation with people. So I have more imposter syndrome just talking and speaking on platforms like this, or speaking
Mm.
with other people and speaking in circles. I have more imposter syndrome with that than actually writing down my political views and social views and kind of principles and all of those things. It just comes out naturally into my poetry, and I'm able to communicate it best through poetry.
But I
Right.
think, Daniel, I don't think you're an imposter. I think when you're a person of color, and I speak for myself, you have to adapt to certain spheres. and that doesn't mean you're betraying your ideology in any way. Like I
Right.
don't have a I'm the I mean I used to be that way, but and I can get into that social sphere that there's a particular kind of way that you have to interact, right? Because I'm in
Right.
higher ed, but for the most part, I don't do that. I just I'm like
I mean,
fuck
you
yeah,
just can't. I mean, you can't because it's a form of like liberalism. It's a form of like dumbing yourself down. And
yeah,
what
yeah,
good does that do? Work doesn't get done
totally,
that way.
totally. And but I will say that I think poetry is well. Let me rewind back because I'm not sure that you're not being true to yourself when you're listening to these voices because they're a part of you in some ways, even though Misael. And I was really thinking about how I perform, in different spaces, and I try to perform my poems with the same tone. But I was watching. I hate to be talking about tango, but I learned from watching other poets do their thing, right? I learned from Masadio, from everybody like you. I learned from you both. And one of the things that Tango was saying is that he 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 takes a poem and pushes it to where it needs to go by doing justice to the words and really thinking about the space that he's in, right? And so that to me is different than I'm going to memorize a poem and just say it a particular way. But I do think there's something to be said about the way you present your poems. You present them to your own excellence, whether it's listening to these spirits or what have you, or you being more direct. I mean, not everybody has the same process and style, and so I think you've all studied hard, and it shows in the quality of your work. I don't know why it's echoing, brother.
Um, you know what? It's interesting you say that. It's interesting you say that because in some of my recordings, um, the invisible tells me read it, read this one and a low key and this word in a high key. It gives me instructions how to perform it. Right now they didn't give me I just read it, but when I'm recording, it gives me these instructions to do it in a certain way. Like when I end my word with good folk, and then my other line will end with can be awake. So and sometimes they ask me to create a pattern, and it sounds very and the invisible tells me when to pause, when to create a pause. Like I could read the system, and then it said go can be out hustled by good folk, and it tells me how to do it like that, and so many times I want to escape from that. I want to escape from that because um I I remember when I was a word player before my schizophrenia kicked in. I had my own way of doing it, and I would just play with the words, and it'll feel so fun. But I've noticed the people react to the way I deliver some poems, and it's always good feedback. So there's a reason why I keep doing it. So yeah,
That's interesting.
yeah,
I mean, in some ways, it's a blessing. Who wouldn't want like somebody giving you cues and telling you how to present your piece, as long as it's not disrupting the flow, you
yeah,
know? Yeah. Do you want to share another one?
sure, sure. All right, this one's called the Queen of Hearts. A guitar amp follows her delivery pace as she honors her mother's struggles with raw grace. She takes her words and dazzles like star-shattered nights, making the summer open mic slam a delight. Shooting for the stars under a blue fiery moon, telling class stories about a country consumed. Capitalism makes profit off a dead corpse. War is the shadiest cash money metaphor. She recites to percussion and melody, landing her street verse like fists of jaguar fury. She can open her periphery to scout ghosts, track energy and confusion fast like thunderbolts. She uses her ambitions with boss player dues, and the Queen of Hearts, she's respected by rules, playing her hand with a sincere heart on her sleeve. speaking the sea language using her poetry. War makes children fatherless and wives grieve their hurt. If it wasn't for the rich people's gluttonous work, the world would be free, truly ready to evolve. Riches never align with the loving earth gods. Her emotions sweep like Pacific Ocean tides, clearing pain and shame from sand tracks and stolen lives. Folks howl after hearing her delicious phrases, as if folks' souls are fed by how she amazes. Dollars calculate their way towards her business. She's known for her service. They gave her cool sweetness. She acts as a network only grassroots folk can, making profit from word of mouth with a good plan. She never breaks down during a bad match of wits, bringing revolutionary feminine lifts, challenging the status quo and cold world with sparks, making time unwind as the queen of hearts.
Nice. I love it. I do recognize that piece. There's a lot there. How about Danny? You want to share a piece too?
Yeah, sure. Well, this one is actually going to be in Nightmares with a Twist. Jesus, the new anthology for Barrio Blues Press, Jesus Press. And yeah, why not? What This would be a great time to do that, right?
Sure, why not?
It's called The Definition of Terror. And with everyone, especially now with the situation in Ukraine, everyone is talking again about the resurgence of fascism and now specifically the resurgence of Nazism and neo-Nazism, which can be argued is much more dangerous. And but we always talk about fascism, and a lot of people, like when Trump came into office, people started to entertain, wow, is he a fascist? Is the U.S. fascist? As if the
Yeah.
U.S. hasn't been fascist from its inception. That we could probably argue that. And so this one is about white supremacist terror, basically. The definition of terror. I heard screams muffled by insidious laughter. I saw children carrying on tradition. I heard voices below the telephone poles. I saw remains charred beyond recognition. I heard the crackle of scorching bones. I saw teeth shoved in pockets as souvenirs. I heard limbs severed from the body. I
Mm.
saw tears streaming down faces. I heard them. I saw them. I may have been one of them.
Oh, I love that poem. The ending is just so good. And I think one thing that you do really well, Daniel, is you end with a deep thought, like a twist,
Mm-hmm.
and that's part of your style. Whereas I think Misael a lot of times focuses on the vision of what's possible, right? And so that's what I think they're both amazing, and in that regards, they play. I don't know, it's lovely. But let's talk about Ukraine, and I think you hit on something. I was at a by any means necessary tribunal yesterday. They have tribunals against injustices, and so they're talking about Ukraine now. It was COVID for a long time, but I asked this expert from England, um, do you think that Ukraine is where they're now training the new Taliban, or that's where they're going to train the new Taliban? Because I could see that happening, right? And this question of Nazism and fascism is global. It's not just here in the U.S. with these racists wanting to end critical theory and infringing on or destroying women's rights, or having just blatantly racist policies against South American and Central American refugees and Mexican refugees. But one of the things that really struck me, and I gotta tell you, I stand with the people of Ukraine, and I stand with the working people of Russia. Right? It's not Soviet Union anymore. Russia. I don't support Putin. I think he's a dick, right? And he needs to go. No question about it. But this move to help Ukraine has also again showed this contradiction in the United States, that people think, oh, it's for democracy, for freedom. They'll allow Ukrainian refugees to come here, right? But why are they putting families in cages on the southern border? Is their refugee status not honored when they're coming from violence in their communities and they're fleeing? But don't know nobody give a shit about the people down south, right? But when it's Ukrainians, probably because they're white and they're European, come over, come. What do you think about that? To that speaks to me on a number of things. One, racism, but also if we could talk about this question of global fascism that I think is really dangerous.
It's a it's a crazy status for the world. If the planet Earth had a Facebook, it would be um, sharing all the disparities, all the troubles, all the hurt. And I could imagine Mother Earth having a Facebook and saying, "I feel like shit today," because one side of me is fighting the other side of me, and over here is this is happening. And I think is the craziest way to look at it if you're looking at it from a subjective point of view.
Mm.
Because if you look at it from a subjective point of view, you start feeling turmoil because you have to split your almost it's almost like splitting your morals because like one because you said they're caging up brown people and even black people and Asian people, but it was mostly the majority was brown folk. And but and then now people are saying like they're coming in, but it's because they're white, and it could almost create an effect where somebody listening to that could feel offended by that. No, no, how could they? But we know that's what the ruling class does best. It tries to make somebody feel left out.
Oh yeah.
It's always that's probably their best weapon that they have used against our people, us as a community, is making each other feel like we're leaving out. We talk about white privilege, that's what you're referring to.
Oh yeah.
And I think that is accurate, but I also want to say that there's when I saw them facing Russia on the social media on the videos, I thought, this is like one of those I rather die on my feet than live on my knees kind of status right now.
Yes. Yes.
Because they're standing up to the giant. And I'm not saying all of Russia is bad, but Putin is one bad motherfucking piece of shit. So I feel like he tried to dominate the Ukrainians and try to create a gesture to the world. But the Ukraine said, fuck that, and they fought that. And maybe there's the 1% in the Ukraine that were trying to make the deal with Russia. But the majority of the people said fuck that, and I was terrified for the
Hmm.
people. I was
Oh
terrified
yeah.
for the black people, that the Africans, the ones that were not being allowed to be on the train simply
Mm.
because of their skin color.
That's
I
right.
was, I was terrified. I was like, how could something like that, like, so even within that response that it sounds like so hip and revolutionary or whatever, but even within that movement, there was that, and that hurts,
Oh yeah.
because it goes back to the old pain that our country faces. Our country has lived such a painful experience with race, that it's to see it happening in a place like that, next to Russia, a place like Russia, and for me, it was hurting me right now just thinking about it. It was hurting my
Yeah.
mind just thinking about it. But I just wanted to say thank you for bringing that up, because it's true. I'm gonna cut it short, but that's how I feel about it.
Yeah. No, that's deep and that's beautifully said. Yeah, Daniel, what do you think about this whole well, I think you've answered a lot of that question, but
Yeah. Well, it's a very complex, complex, what I mean, situation over there, and I think it's just a microcosm to kind of this societal collapse that we kind of find ourselves in right
hmm
now, especially in the U.S., and just really a collapse of like Western ways of like the West. In the West, like no longer being all powerful, and now there's like competitors, for these world powers, and the U.S. is clearly positioning themselves for that future. About 25 years ago, Biden, as we know, is a career politician. He said it himself that one of the few ways that Russia could be provoked was by expanding NATO eastward. And he
Mm,
said this 25 years ago, that this was one of the few things that could piss Russia off. And what happens? The U.S. backs a coup in 2014 in Ukraine, in which they were backing Ukrainian nationalists, some of them neo-Nazis,
mm,
arming them. And still to this day, right now, during this conflict, they are arming the very same or similar Ukrainian fascists, neo-Nazis. The Azov Battalion is a neo-Nazi entity that's been integrated into the Ukrainian National
mm,
Guard.
mm, mm.
A lot of people are saying, well, it's not really that many of them, but it's like, okay, if it's not, they're Nazis and there's thousands of them and they have a lot of political power in Ukraine and they have the backing possibly of the US and of its intelligence agencies. We could go all the way back to 1947, in which there was a CIA operation trying to Nazi-fy Ukrainians so they could, because at that point in 1947, it became more important to combat the Soviet Union than making sure that there wasn't a resurgence of Nazism and that Nazism didn't continue on. So instead of completely, exterminating Nazism, there was a collaboration with these fascists, to curb the rise of communism. Which,
Yeah.
and we talked about a lot of the fascist policies coming out between schools. There is a resurgence of McCarthyism here in
Oh
America.
yeah,
There's a
absolutely.
resurgence of Russophobia. There's a Red Scare Part 2, happening. And I think that basically what's happening, like personally, I'm anti-rich man's war, and I think that's what this is. This is a making of a rich man's war, where General Dynamics, Boeing, Raytheon, all the military
Hmm.
contractors and the board members and the ruling class, they get to eat on the backs of people dying.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? So I think what we have here is a making of a rich man's war, in which the U.S. has more or less said that, hey, we're going to turn the Cold War that we said ended, that never ended, we're going to turn it into a hot war, because we don't want Russia spreading their influence throughout Europe. We want to be the ones to control Europe via NATO, via regime change, and so on and so forth. So I think it's a very complex issue. I
Sure.
feel for both the Russian and the Ukrainian
Oh
people.
yeah, for sure.
And I, what I'm saying, I don't feel for Ukrainian fascists or Nazis
Mm-mm.
whatsoever. And I think in that way, Putin is not wrong by, doing particular things and making particular decisions. But obviously the decisions that he's making, innocent people are going to get killed. Innocent people are going to get harmed. A nuclear war could possibly happen because of this.
Right, right. Yeah, that's one of the things that people are talking about too. But I think you raised a really great point, is to what extent these bourgeoisie are making money off of the people of Ukraine, and people think, oh, the US gives guns to people to cause chaos. No, Ukraine is billions of dollars in debt to the US for these weapons, so the US wins off of national and international disruption. And I think the this question of Nazism in the Ukraine and the increase in fascism, I mean, it benefits the United States, right?
Absolutely.
I was I don't know who I was talking to. I was getting very agitated, and I was like, "Oh, it's a question of democracy." And I ask, how many democratic governments has the United States helped to put into power? Zero, none in Latin America,
Nil.
none in Africa. And but it's still, people believe, oh, we're there, we're spreading
None in South
democracy.
America.
No, not at all. In fact, South America was another theater of anti-communism, and
Absolutely.
anytime there was a progressive politician, the CIA would assassinate them and cause turmoil and revolution. So it's a, yeah. I that to me troubles me. Except that now, the stakes are higher. Just thinking about how many nukes the United States and Russia have, and China has some, but not to the extent that the United States and Russia has. And so one of the questions I wonder, and I'm grappling with it, and I'm while making demands of politicians, how do we stop them? Because demonstrating is not going to do shit. But how do we make them come to their knees? So instead of sending billions of dollars to Ukraine, they spend that money on public schools instead of shutting schools down. Schools in Oakland, which is super racist. Why don't they take the vaccine to communities of color and the poor? Why
Right.
don't they offer testing? Why don't you give help to these businesses that need to open instead of putting us in danger because they need to make their bread too. So it's complicated, but there's a lot to be there. But and in the past we made this call. I've made this call. I've been to marches all over the country, anti-war marches. But now I think people are suffering so much that this call to put this money in the hands of the people is just somehow it hits people harder and they understand. For the person who can't make rent, for the person who can't eat, the college student who's in debt because the financial institutions have treated them like the next commodity to make money off of. So I think that there are more people agreeing with this idea of yes, put that money where it should be, not sending it to kill, Ukrainians with more weapons and whatnot. Because Americans have such good hearts. I mean, there's problems, but I mean, Americans tend to be like, if there's a thing going on, they put money into it, right? And in fact, I recently held a fundraiser for it. It's called the Trust Ukraine Chain, but there's no overhead, there's no organization, because right now, like Doctors Without Borders can't go into there. It's a military zone. All these organizations, Catholics can't go in there. It's a military zone. So they're sending money directly to the people in Ukraine, and they're just buying food and medical things and evacuating people. And one of the things they did was evacuate an orphanage. And just listening to this harrowing story, like they were getting shelled. And this was an orphanage that had babies in it. You just imagine that. I'm like, oh, it just gets to me. They managed to take them all out safely across the border. But I just think that, it's a lot. It's a lot, and I don't think people also realize, and I know I'm going to be quiet because I'm talking a lot. That's horrible. That's one kind of war. Sanctions are also another kind of war. And the
Absolutely.
people in the Soviet Union are going to suffer. And so people need to understand that when the price of goods goes up, the Soviet Union already has a high poverty rate. What is going to happen to these people? Who's going to provide for them? This isn't the Soviet Union of old. Russia is a purely capitalist country run by these oligarchs that are freaking drug dealers, and Putin is the worst one. So do you think he's going to meet the needs of his people? Hell no. No, absolutely not, And so I think that in that regard, people need to see what they have in common with the people in Russia and the people in Ukraine. Instead of seeing themselves as the purveyors of democracy and freedom, which is
Right.
bullshit, dude. But hey, let's hear another poem. Sorry, I'm getting all like I'm getting all fired up.
I wanted to respond to
Please.
because you asked a lot of questions.
I
Right?
know, dude. I know. I
And
apologize.
and I wasn't quite sure if you wanted me to answer.
Sure. We're just talking. Let's just shoot the shit. Let's do this. Let's do this thing.
All right, because I have another poem.
Orale.
But I just wanted to say that what can people do? All right, for those I can't tell the whole world what to do, and a lot of people had a problem with me because I used to always tell people what to do, and I don't want to
both, brother.
I don't I don't want to come off as that dude that just right here like, oh, you're so bossy or whatever. But I've been working on that, But I think that for those people that are viewing, people that we know in our social media, they're very scared of us. They're very scared of us. Even a little group of us, even a small group of us people who are not in the 1%, they're very afraid of us. That's why they invest so much money in police and surveillance and all this, because they're super afraid. They don't know where it's gonna jump out from. Where in the map, these people are gonna come out and just say that one thing that catches fire, because we live in a time where you do one thing, it catches fire, and that's a putazo to the adversity. So what I wanted to say is continue. As a poet, I would say, when you have those moments in your car when you're driving, and you get a thought like, the world should be better if people start hustling in the movement. In the movement, because I kind of feel like if the movement were to hustle, we could create our own economy, like our own economy where we wouldn't be subjected to a mega corporations. You know what I'm saying? I kind of feel like if the movement can out hustle the capitalists, we could run the show in that sense.
Mm,
If we out hustle them,
that's
like,
interesting.
because they're always trying to hustle us. But what if we start out hustling them at that? But just to say something like that is gonna get a lot of revolutionaries upset. They're like, nah, that's not what we're all about. I know that's not what we're all about, but that's where we're always get hurt, because that's why I kind of feel like a lot of people don't respect what we do, simply because a lot of activists that I have known have been poor. When I was in the university, a lot of like one girl said something about I remember her. She's now a doctor, but before she was a hood girl coming out the hood. She said a lot of these actors don't even look like they take a shower. Like, and I was like, and I was like, and I was an actor, and I was like, I felt it, but I know what she was talking about, because she had that way of clowning, and she was just clowning, and I said what did I say? I said, no, I don't think she told me. I just heard about it. Oh yeah, that's what happened. And I started immediately thinking, what is it about us that gives us this presentation? What is it about us? And I seen some radicals, but like, they're just so into rebelling that they don't want to be a part of the economy. That's
Mm,
all. That's one way of answering that. They don't want to wear that Nike. They don't want to wear this or do that or that. They don't want to go with the flow, with the trends, simply as an act of rebellion. And that's very important to highlight, that as an act of rebellion, we consciously put ourselves to go through a we cut our finances, we cut these things because we have an issue against money. But it's not that we shouldn't have an issue against money. We should have an issue against corruption and
mm,
greed and those things. Money is always good to have. Money is always good to have. Why? Because we know when you're feeling hungry, and you see a taco truck, you want to go for hit it up. Why not? You want to get a drink, that's fine. But money makes things happen, and that's what I wanted to share with you guys about that stuff, that we shouldn't be afraid of the money. We associate money with capitalists, but capitalists are just greedy. They're just hoarding all the wealth, and that's what's creating a lot of dysfunction in our society. When they do that, we start cutting schools, we start cutting healthcare, we start cutting all these other institutions that are supposed to help us, because the government has said that we're gonna provide these institutions, and at the end of the day, they just take out the money, and that's what
yeah,
hurts us.
yeah,
And that's why even more revolution should be even more about the money, because we could play. It's a card game. It's a card game between revolutionaries and capitalists. Either when they deal their hands, they have the queen, the aces on their sleeves. They bought them. They bought the dealer, and we're in a casino, and we always end up losing something. But I don't want to sound like a pessimist or a negative Nancy. I just want to say my last thought is that casinos can be beat. We seen people that study it, and they go in there, and they just do it. But like, I'm not saying, I'm just using it as a metaphor. I'm not saying go
right.
into the casino and spend your money.
No,
I'm
no.
saying I'm saying it has been done before, and it can happen again in terms of politics. And we are the masses. There's so many. There's millions of people like you, Jesus, and you, Daniel, and me, Misael. There's millions of Misaelis with different names, and we have the ability to create a better foundation if we have activity within an economic situation that helps activists situate themselves too. Because the one thing that hurts the movement is a struggling activist. Man,
Mm,
the car's not working. How's he gonna get to a protest, make the demand, and all of that stuff? because he chose to rebel. He chose that stuff. And I'm not saying that's a bad choice. I'm saying, damn, that's badass. You're doing it like that. But I know there's other people that are made for that. Then they just know how to handle money. And we need those people to step up to kind of like, hey, I know, let this person do this stuff, but you do this stuff because we need you, this because it's a division of labor that activists have to do. While one can be the poet, the other could be the artist, the other one could be the money person, and things like that. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I don't know if that's too much I'm saying, but
No, no, but
yeah.
I think
It's just
money's a political question, and like even this trust chain, there's no bureaucracy, there's no overhead, there's no corruption. The money goes straight to the people. That's the kind of economy we need, right?
yes,
Because I don't think there is a gentler, kinder capitalism. Nope,
there isn't.
there isn't. By its very nature, it's cutthroat, and you're right. People are getting more dehumanizing, and the bourgeoisie are getting more dehumanizing. And whereas before they would throw a bone to the workers here and there, you had to fight for it. But nowadays, I don't even think the ruling class cares about the nation as they maybe did in the past. But I do think you're right. We do need to be able to make our organizations not bureaucratic, not dependent on any rich people, but for us to sustain ourselves.
Yes,
And one of the things that I see is beautiful are all these mutual aids organizations, true mutual aid, not charity, communities helping each other, that we saw during the pandemic. And I think we should nurture that, right? So yeah, I do, and I don't know what I have a lot of a vision of what a flat, like where everybody has power and people's needs are met, could be like. We're a ways from there, but it's not impossible. So I'm sorry, Daniel, go ahead.
no, I thought you guys both came up with great points. I mean, it has to be a people oriented. Whatever we're doing, it has to be a people oriented like movement. It has to be a people oriented economy, a people oriented policy, and so on and so forth. And having funding. What Misael was talking about, like having money is having funding. You got to have funding to do things. So to,
Yeah.
to get the ball rolling on things. And I think also a big part of that, because Misael talked about out hustling, and right now it's the fascists that's out hustling us, the right wingers, especially the left in the West. I'm not talking about the left globally. I think the left globally is eons away from where the left is here in the Western Hemisphere. In my opinion, they're actually getting things done. They're actually fighting on all fronts. You know what I mean? Some of
Yeah.
them are actually waging war, like people's wars. You know what I mean, for their rights and for
Yep.
their liberties and whatnot. So I think the biggest part of out hustling the fascists and whatnot is raising our consciousness and raising the consciousness of other people whenever you have the opportunity to.
Yep.
A lot of people don't know that with that coup in 2014, that U.S. backed coup in the Ukraine in 2014, that fascists all over the world were looking at these little mini battles between Russians and Ukrainian fascists, and some of them actually came to Ukraine to join these forces, to join these Ukrainian nationalists, and some of
Ugh.
them gained military experience. Some of them gained ideological experience with fascism and nationalism. And these are fascists from all over the world, and many of them coming from the United States of America. So we have some fascists here in the United States of America who received training from these Ukrainian fascists around the time of the 2014 coup. So that's what I think Misael is referring to when he's saying we're being out hustled right now,
Yeah.
because the
Yeah.
right is ready. They're armed and ready to go. Whereas the left, we still have a while to go in terms of solidarity and kind of having our own preparing for our own what's our next move
Right.
and
Right.
whatnot. So
Well, I agree. I mean, I don't have any guns. I don't, but I can
yeah,
educate. I can open my mouth. I can stand up for what's right, not to be I. But I do think that is so. There's also hope too, though. I think. I mean, I look at my son who's 12, and when he, oh my God, I almost cried when he was outside the mayor's house demanding safety, demand and just just and from a real human anger in that speech. The dude was not 12 then, he was 11 years old. My daughter too, she has political opinions about the environment and how the creatures should be treated, and so they understand what the world should be like, right? And I think, to me, and I'm not one of those people that believes, oh, the future is up to the youth. No, the future is up to all of us. We all have a part to play, you
Absolutely.
know. And I also have to disrupt that narrative sometimes when I go to these meetings, and I'm like, no, 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 the future is up to all of us, not the youth, you know. So that, I mean, the youth are doing great strides even here in Chicago, but they need wisdom, they also need mentorship, they need education, right?
Yeah.
Praxis can only go so far. I've learned this in my old age. I'm starting to read theory more now because I've hit my limit, you know. And so I think that we have a great opportunity. We just need to find each other and connect. And look, even, oh god, I got a TikTok account the other day, and I'm like, oh my gosh, why? Because we
Yeah.
want to connect with these youth organizers, right, and
Yes.
support each other, not just use them. But let's God, you guys, we've been on for 51 minutes. What? Time flies. Hey,
Yeah.
let's do one more poem, and then maybe we'll shut down, not shut down. Do it. That's a bad word. We'll end with the question of vision, maybe. I haven't done that in a while. Misa, do you want to read one of your pieces, and then Daniel, or you by vice versa? Danny, if you want to go first, and
Yeah,
Misa
you
will
want
go
to go
last.
first, Danny?
Yeah, hit it, Daniel.
Yeah, sure, man. It the irony that you just mentioned, the future is up, and I actually have a poem called "The Future is Up to the Masses." Like I
Nice.
talked about that. So, um, a sick planet breathes through straws, yet still beautiful and full of life. Flower petals sprinkle about the ground. Skies remain blue, despite blood-stained hands. The carbon footprint of the ruling establishment. Earth restores itself with or without them. Billions of years of existence towering over mere thousands. It didn't take long to fuck it all up, taking even longer to spit upon the ambition to rule everything, to visualize and build a better world, to preserve life by all means.
Oh my God, that is a beautiful. And you have to send that poem into the People's Tribune. I'm in charge of the poetry page. Well, maybe not in charge, but I'm helping with the poetry page.
Nice.
That is beautiful, Daniel. Oh
Thank you.
gosh, obviously I'll shut up, but it's just so spot on. Misael, how about you? I know, right?
Uh, it's called "If You Ever See Us."
Hmm.
I sing of a lady who is loved by the poor. She survived the dark nights dreaming of ending the war. She's a daring woman with enticing potions and rides beside me reciting lyric poems. Boulevards are wet after it rains barrio songs and sweet freedom songs offered to the morning dawn. The open mic airbenders bend the time and space, breaking evil hexes with kinetic wordplay. I'm traveling through dimensions like a war vet, blasting enemies with cannons to make her wet. I never surrender to the adversity while she chants to Mother Earth for the victory. I'm a gangster writing detective mysteries while she sings and records iambic melodies. We're the page masters with the ink pens and sage bundles, reciting on lit stages as a dual couple. We smile now and write out wow as the player of words. We're deuces gone wow and metaphor rhyme hustlers. We're street science mixed with poetic physics labs. We pack kinetic energy in our vocab. Living on the edge makes us dangerous, living like poets from the marble universe. Our word is our weapon and survival knife. Our kinetic wordplay blazes foes like a pipe. The time machine is a book and memory lapse. Time is money by prison industrial complex. But we spend, make, and take time multiplying lines. Poets foam up like beer and take you to the times. So if you ever see us throw up a peace sign, we're willing to kick it and share our storylines. Even though we're viewed as rowdy outlaw poets, our kinetic words can restore the gravel pits.
Love it. Damn, that was
Wow,
powerful.
man.
Yeah,
It's
I
fire.
love both of these pieces. Hey, so I think this is a really great way to end, and maybe talk about vision a little bit. What is, we talked about the economy, but maybe what's your vision? Um, no, regardless, I mean, for whatever. What's your
Uh,
vision of something better?
well, going back to what Daniel has said, he says something about the way to fight back is raise our consciousness. I think that's what he said, and that is so beautifully said. I think that was so powerful when he said that. raising our consciousness in many ways, you know, because what I learned with schizophrenia is that I had to I had to I had to imagine what it looks like as an artist to be in this situation in the time where the economy is collapsing, and a
Mm.
time where Donald Trump was talking about having a space force, where he was talking about when Area 51 was gonna get raided by all those people talking about Naruto and all that stuff. You know, like like so you're imagining all these things, and here you are listening to invisible voices. So I'm thinking, what's a vision like with raising our consciousness? That sounds cliche, I know, to a lot of the movement, maybe might sound like some spiritual stuff, but like, you know, I just wanted to say there's a lot of people that go meditate up in a mountain just to get 5 seconds of what I hear every day, just to hear like a voice, you know, like, and they pay thousands of dollars for that, you know. And I just wanted to say, it's the irony. We just gotta. I don't know what I'm saying. All right, hold on. Let me focus on the vision. The vision is to create a better atmosphere within us by being joyful within ourselves. If we're
Mm-mm.
joyful poets, joyful at the service that we do, if it brings us love and happiness, then we can inspire others around us and create a good atmosphere and environment that will
Mm.
create momentum to for positivity and exchanges of ideas and all the good stuff. So that's
Mm-hmm.
how I feel about the vision. That's the vision I have for myself. I
It's
have a vision
lovely.
for myself to create a harmony space, even if I'm talking radical politics with activists. Even if I'm doing that, I have to be in a harmony space, because being I'm a rowdy dude. I'm very rowdy, and that's what I've been working on myself, but working on myself for the interest of creating a better collaboration with people and spreading ideas like a wildfire. That's all. That's what I'm all about. You know, that's my
Love it.
vision for myself. My vision for what I hope to do. As far as an organization, or I don't really belong to one. I got kicked out almost every organization except my gang. But I outgrew that life, and so I don't know what to do. That's why I'm writing poetry, exploring and all these answers. But within that discourse, I'm able to create a dialogue with people about it. The best thing we could change is ourselves. I guess it's cliche, but I know Gandhi said, "Change, be the change you want to see." And I think that's true. You know, just you want a better person. You wanna see financially distribution of wealth. Well, you know, there's times when I get my check and I just start handing out money. Not like those crazy Catholic people that go on the street and they just give $1 to everybody. But like, I just, I like to provide here and there whatever I got as a practice, because I'm doing it. And if I do it, then it's now it's possible. Now whatever we were dreaming of just happened. But
Mm.
can it happen at a bigger level, at a macro, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever word I'm looking for, like something bigger than that? Of course it can. Of course it can. But what the same rules and the same lessons that you learn from that, even if it's just $20 you're handing out to little kids, what is that like at a bigger level, at a bigger scale? What are the lessons you learn from that? Will the kids fight for the money? Does one need $2 instead of $1, and things like that? So because of their situation, that's what I'm referring to. So
Hmm.
I just wanted to say that we start practicing this stuff ourselves, because we talk ideas and everything, a world of ideas. That's what I was told this life is. But once we start practicing that stuff, we become that change. We start, and little kids see that, they go like, hey, that is possible. How come he does this, and chooses war? How come he chooses peace? And you know what I'm saying? Being that example, ourselves. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Mm. No, that's beautiful. Daniel, how about you?
Really just my vision, or just vision in general. When I think about vision, I just think about building a better world. And as Misael talked about, a lot of that is building a better self. So, it's a very personal journey, because, who you are personally, and where,
Hmm.
and your development, and the raising, and your consciousness, your awareness, your social consciousness, your political consciousness, that individual work that comes with, being a part of the movement, or wanting to be a part of the movement, being an organizer, or wanting to become an organizer, being an activist, or wanting to become an activist. That personal journey is a big part of it. And also, Martin Luther King used to talk about, and I don't know the exact quote, but he talked about how we're like currently living in a thing-oriented society, and that it has to become a people-oriented society. And I think
Yep.
that's vision, to me, and even if it means that I have to give up my privileges as a man that have been ascribed to me. I did not earn my privilege as a man, merely by having something in between my legs. I've been given this status that I didn't ask for, or any of that, but that was already established conditions, that were already established before I got here, even if it means I have to give up certain privileges. And that means for white folks, white folks have to be a part of the effort of fighting white supremacy. So
Yes.
you have to give up your own privileges, or give up your own advantages. So again, like going back to a people-oriented society, and if we can get to that, then we are building a different world, building a new world, and we have to build it now.
Oh
For a lot
yeah.
of people don't have futures out here, because they don't have food, they don't have water, they don't have clothing, they don't have housing. So what is a future to a person that doesn't have those things? So it
Yep.
has to be now. We have to build now.
Yeah, I don't disagree. That was beautiful. Well, thank you, Misa and Daniel. I invite you to do this every Sunday. I think it'd be dope. Maybe something to think about. And hello, viewer. We're just closing out. Thank you for watching. You've been watching Radical Books and Activists. I almost said the last name. Radical Books and Activists. Please like and subscribe. And if you want to come on, or you want to ask a question of Misa and Daniel, please be respectful and post it in the comments. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Thanks for watching. Yeah, peace
Yeah.
out.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
for
you,
Now, did I
having
everybody.
me,
just say
Jesus.
peace
Thank
out?
you.
Peace, peace.
Peace.
Don't leave though.